What is social media? What are the effects of excessive use of social media? How can social media be addictive? What does social media do to your brain? Social media, the good, the bad, the ugly. Social media is known as being an easily accessible range of platforms on which you can view people's lives, build relationships, or share photos of your own daily life. But using social media to connect in these ways can have benefits and drawbacks. The endless opportunity to scroll entrances us, and I was beginning to wonder, how is this affecting me psychologically? We have come to find that there is an extraordinary link with social media and mental health. There is a lot to be said about the concerns of using social media and the scary effects it has on the mind. As we could guess, social media is used widely by many people across the world. But exactly how many of us are keeping our eyes glued to the infinitive feed? Popular platform Facebook had 2.7 billion users by mid-2020. To bring that to context, that's 40% of the world's population. Here's a fact that will make you feel guilty. The average person spends over 3 hours on their phone each day, including approximately 2.5 hours on social media. Yep, I feel called out. Following a personal survey that was completed by over 50 people, 70% said they use social media in the evening as a leisurely activity when they are winding down, as an escape after a long day perhaps? During a typical day, when are you most likely to use social media?
I might use it first thing in the morning and have a quick glance to see if there's anything that strikes my interest. And then once again in the usually afternoon, maybe a little bit in the evening, but not for very long.
Generally speaking, I check it in the morning or in the afternoon, like just when there's everything else is done with the day, and I'll do my final little checks.
How often do you use social media?
I'm not on it every day, so I'd say probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Diving into the various topics of social media, the first obvious one that springs to mind is filters. Filters are fun, but also fake. Filters are used to strengthen false illusions. Although the people using them may not realise, subconsciously this is exactly what they're doing. We get used to seeing such perfection that we feel insecure about our own looks. This eats away at our self-esteem until we feel self-conscious about every minuscule detail of ourselves. It isn't the healthiest, to say the least. Referring to the information from my survey, 30% of participants say that low self-esteem is something they've experienced as a result of social media usage. 14% said that filters could be the most damaging part of social media. What negative effects has social media had on you?
It doesn't really affect me in that way, but what I do notice with social media from a negative standpoint is that it implies a degree of trust. You know, it's like the fact checkers on Facebook, where they claim they fact check something around the vaccines or COVID, but anyway, at any rate, it turns out they're not fact checkers at all, they're checking opinions, so it's not really facts, and yet we trust it, or supposed to trust it.
Previously, I've kind of had a comparative mindset where I feel like, oh, I'm not doing this thing that this other person is doing, so my life is not as interesting or as fun, my life is boring.
One huge problem people face while on social media that links to filters is comparison. We have thoughts similar to, why don't I look like that? Having social media friends can be tricky. You don't have the advantage of understanding their body language, making eye contact, or engaging in physical contact. These are things that make a friendship more real. The toughest thing is that social media friends can just turn you off like a switch without further thought. Your friends can just stop answering you. What did you do? Do you even know what went wrong? No longer responding is an easy option for a friend to say that they don't want to be your friend anymore. You can't trust how long a friendship will last online. Another key drawback of social media friends is that meeting them in person is unlikely. If you want to do something like join someone for a meal in a restaurant, your social media friends are less likely to help with that unless they are people you also see in real life. Almost everyone who took my survey said they highly valued the importance of face-to-face interaction over digital interaction. However, the majority of people expressed that they only see their friends in person a few times a month. 3% said they don't even have face-to-face friends, are more choosing to settle with friends online. I want us to know how much you value the importance of face-to-face socialisation with your friends.
Well, I think it's vitally important. I think without, talking to people, it's really hard, much harder to get an idea of the tone of the conversation.
I think it's way more important than anything that social media can provide. There's something about seeing a person's reaction, even their body language and the way that they, their tone of voice. There's all these little micro cues that are way useful when communicating that you just can't get on social media.
How often do you see your friends face to face?
Pre-COVID, not a lot. I used to be very much a hermit. I used to just like sit on like the computer all the time. But now I'm really trying to make more of an effort to see people.
What is FOMO and what causes it? An increase of social media usage has seen an increase in the term FOMO. Fear of missing out is very common, especially among teens. This causes feelings of exclusion and dissatisfaction. This in turn makes us want to use social media to a more excessive extent, and we can become obsessed or, even worse, possessive over our friends. But how does it occur? Fear of missing out tends to happen when your friends are on social media and you notice them doing things without you. They could, for example, be creating group chats without you. You might come across an image of a friend out with other friends and wonder why you weren't there with them. Or, when your friends and classmates are using social media, you may worry about missing a message, an inside joke, or other information that connects you to your peers. A high 25% of people who took my survey selected fear of missing out as a negative effect social media had caused them to experience. Social media is competing for your attention by providing quick and continuous information. It's easily accessible and juices out new information with every click. This causes us to find distraction much more compelling. This is when our brain starts to be affected. Because of all the hours spent absorbing information, the part of the brain associated with maintaining information shrinks. But how do we get addicted to social media? Social media manages to produce immediate rewards in the form of a dopamine release. This is how we get addicted. This happens when you see a new post something yourself, or receive a notification from the app. We are always looking for a reward. Scarily, brain scans have shown that the brain of a heavy social media user looks similar to those addicted to drugs or gambling. We know that dopamine is the drive to our need for reward, but where is dopamine affected? Your brain's dopamine system is affected by three factors: expectation, achievement, and regulation. An example of one of these achievements would be receiving likes on a post. People then feel the need to keep using it in order to repeat this good feeling. Addiction is a problem sprouted from becoming reliant on social media at every point of the day, and this is why. With my survey, it was discovered that most people thought comments are the most damaging part of social media. What aspect of social media could be damaging?
Well, oddly enough, misinformation from the fact checkers, because they don't check facts, they check opinions, and if you disagree with their opinion, they will ban or take a page out. And I think it's quite dangerous. It's, in other words, it's closing down free speech.
I think it's extremely addictive, predominantly because from a social aspect, because things like the weather app aren't exactly that addictive because there's not really a social side of it. But as humans, we like to share things with other humans because we're social creatures. And so even if it's not something that you posted, you see a post and you're like, I want my friend to see that, so you share it. And I think that's why is we get so caught up in that feedback loop of constantly like sharing things all the time that it kind of gradually loses meaning and we become almost numbed to the feeling of actually socializing.
How do you feel when people like your posts?
It excites me because it's like, oh, this person has seen the post. And I try really hard to not get caught up with the numbers anymore because I feel like a lot of the time we're conditioned to think, oh, this post didn't do that well. That must be a bad post. And it's like, no, maybe not everybody is on their phone when you posted that and they just didn't see it.
This is Christina, an average teenager, and her rather oblivious mother, Michelle. There were no signs, symptoms, or any change in attitude and behaviour that would tell Michelle, a 42-year-old executive assistant, that her daughter, Christina, was going through emotional distress. Christina would master the terrific act of covering this up. She went about her life seemingly happy, except on the inside she was deeply unhappy. The teen's morning routine consisted of waking up every day at 6 a.m. and, while she was still half asleep, going on her phone to tediously browse through social media. Christina would subconsciously do this to find an emotional fix. Christina, while on an emotional roller coaster involving social media and other personal issues, still showed no signs of distress. I wonder if that's because she was too busy getting her fix on social media and her parents were too busy living their own lives that no one noticed anything. Not speaking up about problems early on is a cause for disaster. Christina, however, continued on. Did it ever cross anyone's mind that social media can be good too? Let's dive into social media's good bits and why it can have a positive effect on society. Starting off with, why growing relationships on social media is so convenient. Firstly, being able to connect with your friends anywhere in the world is pretty cool. I could find someone who has the same interest as me, and even though we live on the other side of the world, I can still talk to them. Being able to communicate with friends outside of talking in person is extremely useful. What if they've gone on holiday? You still have a way of sharing that experience with them and speaking to each other if you need to. There is an amazing opportunity to meet people like you regardless of where they are, and a chance to build and maintain already existing friendships regardless of how far apart you are physically. A large 70% of people who took my survey said they mostly use social media to keep in contact with friends and family. 66% said that it's allowed them to connect with people who they can't see face to face. What do you currently use social media for?
Mainly socializing and communicating with friends and posting things that I think other people would like to see.
I think mostly I use social media for keeping in contact and keeping up with friends and family on one hand, and for promotion and sharing work or films or comic and that kind of thing on the other hand.
I just have a look to see what people have been up to, people I don't see very often, to see if they put any updates.
What positive effects has social media had on you?
I have spoken to and gotten the chance to meet so many people through social media. It has allowed me to connect with so many people. I feel extremely lucky to know all the people that I know because of social media.
Well, I met my wife on social media, so that's a positive benefit. And I think it does, it connects people, it allows people, especially people who are a bit anxious or nervous in real life, can actually be more themselves online.
Social media can be extremely useful for socially anxious or introverted people. They may find it easier to connect with people without actually speaking, as there is less pressure involved. It feels a lot less hazardous and draining than face-to-face interactions are, so it's a suitable option. Teens who feel that social interactions are difficult for them say that social media is a great way for them to make friends. So, heading back to Christina's story. Once Christina is out of bed, the routine of life begins. The saddest thing about Christina's daily routine is that although she'd make it to the shower, eat breakfast, and get ready for Zoom school, she'd skillfully stay glued to her phone, still craving for her reward. The rest of Christina's day would comprise of school, homework, text messaging, TV, cooking, and more social media interaction. This sounds fairly like most teenagers' daily lives, though the act of being attached to her phone through all of this wasn't normal, and it was unhealthy. Social media does a great job of creating feelings of oneness and inclusion through the idea of community. Social media is so incredibly widespread. You can find people of the same lifestyle, religion, communities, and backgrounds. Social media allows you to unify these people into one loving community. This then exerts feelings of safety. There is opportunity to share anything on social media. It could be things that bring a smile to you or the user's face, artwork that took you days to complete that you want to show off, or tips about something you and your followers are interested in. Having the power to spread positive information to others, in turn, makes us feel good. Having the ability to read, gather, and look into the latest information is extraordinarily useful. It's a way of quickly accessing important news without having to tune into the full programme. An example of a platform that makes this possible would be Twitter. You can use platforms like this to see the newest news, current events, or weather information. Although my personal favourite would be using social media to find missing cats and dogs. As a summary to all our positive points, some people just love social media for the basic reason of decent entertainment. People love tuning into the world of endless scroll when they reached a point of boredom and they are seeking something that would put a smile on their face. Most of the people who completed my survey conveyed that social media gives them a sense of amusement, and that their favourite aspects of social media are funny or relatable posts and videos. What content do you like to look at on social media?
Traditionally, I could just sit on the Explore page and endlessly scroll, but I really like posts and videos that actually make me think about things.
Now, reaching the unhappy ending of Christina's story, unfortunately, these unhealthy habits continued. Seeing photos of women her age every day gave Christina the impression that she was somehow below standard. She also suffered serious FOMO due to the intense amount of posts she would view of her friends while she wasn't present. Through the addiction she experienced, Christina created an anxiety which was hard to control because she couldn't stay away from her phone. Christina's anxiety was almost certainly caused by too much interaction with social media, not enough self-care, a lack of parents monitoring, and a lack of human interaction. Now that we have looked at the key factors of social media and what causes it to have a strain on our minds, let's hope we are all more aware of social media usage and what it does to us. Applying ways to cope and change habits, and learning how to sensibly enjoy social media is of key importance moving forward. We can set ourselves boundaries or remind ourselves to be kind no matter what the circumstances are. We can certainly enjoy social media, but not too much. Tell yourself to take breaks if things feel as though they are getting out of hand, because that's in your control. Choose the platforms that make you happy and delete the ones that don't. You aren't expected to be in possession of every popular platform out there. Talk to the people you truly like and block the ones who treat you poorly. Follow the accounts that influence you positively, not negatively. Social media doesn't have to be bad. It can be good too.